Do we go now? Okay, let's go ahead and call to order our June regular meeting of the school board. It's June 9th, 2025 at 6 o'clock p.m. Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Bell is absent for the moment, but she is on her way. Mrs. Hancock?
Here.
Mr. Kuchert?
Here.
Mr. Lackner?
Here.
Mrs. McCabe?
Here.
Mrs. Rich?
Here.
Mrs. Bell?
Here.
And Mrs. Fairgrave?
Here. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
For which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, and then our first order of business is the public hearing on the District 303 2024-2025 amended budget. The public hearing on the Community Unit School District 303 2024-2025 amended budget is called to order at 6:01 p.m. The budget was discussed at the April 28th, 2025 Business Services meeting and approved for public display and a public hearing at the April 28th, 2025 Special School Board meeting. There is a document in the agenda that lists our current cash balances as of June 30th, 2024. Are there any comments from community members?
Hi. My question is, how is this going to impact the 25-26 budget?
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other comments at this time or questions? Any comments from board members? Okay. The public hearing for the Community Unit School District 303 2024-2025 amended budget is closed at 6:02 p.m. And with that, we will move to item 3 on the agenda, which is reports to the board. The superintendent's report, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mrs. Fairgrave. Tonight we'll start off with our video celebration. Springtime is this amazing time in schools to celebrate our graduations, our honors, our continuations, all of these different moments in time that reflect on our students and their achievements no matter where they're at, from preschool to our transition program, all celebrating the work of our students. I would also like to celebrate all of our staff members. It's been an incredible year for our staff, the work they've done in the classrooms, in the transportation department, from our inside of our kitchens and cafeterias, in our libraries, and our front office staff. I just so appreciate each and every one of our staff members for the work they do as we honored our students at the end of the year and these amazing graduation celebrations that we were all, the board and myself, were a part of, to be able to witness those moments. Incredible gratitude for who our community is, our students, our staff, and our families. Just thank you for all that you do. We also have a significant number of our staff who are getting ourselves ready for August, when all of our students and many of our staff return with building, construction, upgrades, and cleaning out the schools and getting it refreshed. So just great amount of gratitude for our incredible staff who are working over the summer. So we're getting ready to hand it back to our teachers when they get back in August. Mrs. Fairgrieve?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gordon. With that, we'll move on to board member reports on committee meetings. I will kick it off with, from a Business Services Committee meeting standpoint. We had several items that were up for discussion in our committee meeting almost 2 weeks ago, and many of those are either in our consent agenda or for action tonight. So a key one is a student information system recommendation. That really will be transformational for our district, in my opinion. That will be launching in the 26-27 school year officially, but there will be a lot of work on the front end with the soft launch next spring. We also reviewed, of course, our standing items financial reports for D303 and Mid-Valley. We do have a capital projects transfer, which really is a annual business as usual event that takes place as well. And then we have several items related to our meal pricing that will be up as well. We talked about transportation, and we have that as a follow-up item on our agenda tonight also. And then with that, we have a lot of facility-type things, whether it's related to our AC, wireless projection refresh, a concrete stair replacement, and so forth. So that's all I have for business services. How about learning and teaching?
Okay, so learning and teaching, we met back on May 19th at 5:30 p.m. There were a number of items that we had discussed that evening. As a reminder to everybody, everything is recorded and available on our YouTube channel, so I highly recommend that the community take a look. The first item that we discussed was presented by Ms. Stahl and Mr. Buxton. It was a multilingual update. We discussed the current state of implementation and success criteria, as well as academic success criteria. We will have, I believe, an update, first update on all of that in November. Next item that we discussed was the transition of access from Anderson to Coron. So some initiatives have begun this spring. Notably, we discussed the STAR training that is specific to both new staff, and that's differentiated from the existing staff. I had asked a question regarding the engagement from the community, and we were told that there was a strong family focus and some engaging conversations. So that is encouraging as we move into a new chapter for that program. The next one we discussed was Title I school-wide plans. So that was presented by Dr. Taylor Moore, and then we heard from both Mr. Minnelli and Mr. Jarrett. I believe that is also we'll have some follow-up this evening on that topic, as there were some questions from the board. As I said, we heard directly from Mr. Jarrett and Mr. Minnelli regarding the use of the funds and what is intended to be done with said funds. Then we went on to, which is for action, if I'm not mistaken, this evening, we went through the health resource renewal recommendation. So we heard from a number of individuals from there, including department chairs. It was a very thorough review process to both be adhere to the additional mandates from the state, as well as to align on a resource that everybody was comfortable using. The last item that we discussed was the Edmentum renewal. That is also, I believe, for action this evening. So we heard from Ms. Schuett regarding that program. And then we discussed a couple of future agenda items. So next meeting, we'll see some curriculum updates, some implementation criteria updates, and then 2 high school experience teams that will be completed at that point. So, and then lastly, the Access program will have a future update on the facilities. I think that was the gist of it.
Thank you, Mr. Kuschert. And from a policy standpoint, I think I'll go ahead and take that one also. For the policy committee meeting, really our main focus of that was related to the handbook for the students, and we have some updates on that, and that also is an action item for tonight's agenda. And that is it from that standpoint. Any questions from the board for committees? Okay, moving to the next item. This is a new standing agenda item that we added, and it's really intended as it implies. This will be a section where we'll have an opportunity to close the loop, if you will, on follow-ups or open items that had numerous questions from a prior meeting. And so we'll bring it back to the agenda at this point, and then talk through whatever those follow-ups are in discussion at that time. So, if there are, for the board, just kind of thinking forward, if there are items in particular that you would like to make sure get in this section for follow-up, please let me know so that I can make sure that that is included if I've missed it or whatever the case might be. So with that, first one is the Title I update.
Thank you, Mrs. Fairgrave. I'd invite Yvette Stahl to come on up, Executive Director of Learning Teaching, to give us a brief update of Title I since the last time we spoke.
Thank you. At our last meeting where we talked about Title I, there were some excellent questions brought forward by the board, and some of which we're able to articulate for you tonight, and perhaps speak to some of the sort of future plans of how we will tackle information around Title I to best meet your needs. A few things. There were a fair amount of questions on how will we make sure that what we do with our funding for Title I is effective for students, which is a fair question. So we're planning on looking at several things. Moving forward, we want to lean in a little bit to the strategic plan and the success indicators there. So initially making sure that we're seeing year-over-year progress within the areas of absenteeism, and also students who are economically disadvantaged also feeling like they belong, just like all of our other students do as well. But in addition, we'd like to look at the extent to which economically disadvantaged students are meeting their typical academic growth targets in reading and math, just like we do for all students. And not just stretch growth, but we also would like to look at those typical growth targets. So just to remind you, as we assess students in the fall and then also again in the spring, there is a metric that's set forth that we would expect that student to meet by the springtime when we assess again. So we're saying if we are using our funding and other resources alongside to sort of level that playing field for those students who are economically disadvantaged, then we would hope that they would be able to meet those typical growth targets or perhaps their stretch growth target. So we're going to monitor data for all economically disadvantaged students, not just relative to the targets, but also keeping in mind that we need to make sure whatever actions we're specifically taking are effective as well. So as they participate in activities and interventions and interact with staff that would be supported by Title I, then we would also be able to look at those students specifically and tie their performance perhaps to what we were able to provide them. So for instance, last year compared to this year, Anderson, as an example, had some really strong growth in math relative to these two groups. So if you look at 23-24, their students at Anderson, actually 61% for students who are economically disadvantaged, as well as those who were not economically disadvantaged, met their typical growth targets. And then this past year, the one that's just closed out for us, those low SES students actually exceeded that typical growth target that other students did. So we're starting to take a look at where did that growth come from, not just are we putting programs in place, are we putting supports in place, but instead which students are affected, in which ways are they affected. So math, for instance, was a really strong growth area. Reading, on the other hand, is probably an area that we need to focus on in the upcoming year. So we've started to break down that data to make that much clearer to our teams, but also want to make that clear to you as well. Questions about that? Anything I can answer?
The only question that I have is from a standpoint, could we expect then a follow-up if we measure in the fall, before the end of this year, could we expect a follow-up to see how they're progressing, at least with the first milestone?
We absolutely could. I mean, the nice thing about the way we track our data on our students is that we do know who they are, and we do know the groups that they fall within, and we do know the interventions and activities we put in place. So there's no reason we can't watch them closely and share that back and that progress back.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm curious about if you look at the difference between Title I schools versus targeted, and as you decipher the data, how that process might hinder or impact student growth.
Yeah. I mean, we could certainly look a little closer at the schools that are targeted assistance schools versus school-wide. What we tried to do in our initial conversations is, regardless, start by looking at each of those students and groups of students to say as a whole, based on what we provided, where did those students end up? And then we can maybe broadly look at that. So what did that look like when we delivered that? So for instance, where we see those success areas, we'd want to continue. Where we don't, we might want to consider something different. Other questions I can answer for you?
Was that the end there? Okay, I
It
wasn't
is.
sure if we were going to stay on that topic. There was a question, I believe it was Mr. Lackner, that had asked about the schools that elect to not apply for the funding.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that, please?
Yeah, we did do some investigation with ISB, and in order to get that information, we would need to FOIA, for instance, who chooses the school-wide status or not. Dr. Taylor-Moore was kind enough to make some connections with ISB and talk through some of those pieces, if you'd like to hear any other details about that.
With data that's not just readily available, that the state produces for us or anyone else.
Can I just follow up on that? So instead of going the FOIA route, which I understand can be very laborious, is it possible that we cannot reach out to our districts that we benchmark against and through our connections with those individuals and find out?
We do have strong connections with other districts. It would be possible for us to reach out and ask those questions and build similar to what we've done with other comparable and aspirational district conversations.
Yeah.
To see how forthcoming they might be with some of their plans. We could certainly do that.
Okay.
I think between that outreach and the answer to Mrs. McCabe's question, which is the heart of the matter, that'll help us determine whether the school-wide assignment is the right course in the future.
Yeah. Other questions? All right. Thank you.
I think the next follow-up item was related to transportation.
Thank you, and I'll take that follow-up. This was in relationship to the Norton Creek community, and we had a number of parents come to us through public comment and email requesting that we review our points of pickup and points of drop-off in consideration of transportation. So in D303, we think about two different points to determine the 1.5 mile radius. So if you're under the 1.5 mile radius, families need to either walk, that's in a walk zone. 1.5 and beyond is where we offer transportation. So one of the questions the community members asked us were, what were your points of drop-off? Current, or at that time, our points of drop-off were at the curb of the home and the first entry point into a school, whatever that school was. Upon further conversations with other districts, the King County ROE, legal counsel, and others, where our school point of entry needs to be is where a bus would actually drop off at. So generally, there's a loop or there's a bus area there. So that has to be that consistent point drop-off. It doesn't sound like a lot, but in the big scheme, it could be a 0.1 to a 0.2 difference in the being able to pick up or drop off students through the transportation process. So we're reevaluating all of those pieces throughout this summer. That's the work the transportation is doing. We've communicated to all of those families in Norton Creek, letting them know, no matter what, next year you have transportation, that we are taking this on and we're reviewing it. So working through that process.
Can I ask you to clarify?
Please.
So, because I think I understand what you're saying related to the curve for the drop-off, but that, it seems very vague. So are we talking the main entrance to
The
a
main
school
entrance
is
point
the
to a school. So yeah,
Okay.
so there's a
Okay.
drop off, the nearest one to that main entrance. So I'm thinking like North High School, they would always have one drop off point. We wouldn't like, there's 10
'Cause
buses
you know
in a
there's-
row.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's that one consistent drop off point nearest to the front doors, no
Okay.
matter, be it north, be it Norton Creek, or wherever their bus lanes are.
Okay.
That will be the nearest one. So thank you for that clarification. It's not just in the bus loop.
loop, right.
The
Yeah.
last bus in the
Okay.
bus loop.
Okay.
It's that one, so thank you for that.
Gotcha. And then, as you're doing the audit of all of the schools, if you find that there are other families that are getting transportation today, but they're, by this new metric, are in the less than 1.5, will they still be afforded this year to be able to
Yes.
make arrangements then going into 25,
Perfect.
26,
Yes.
27?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
The routes, if you're a bus rider, you're going to be a bus rider next year. If we have not already communicated to you on any other situation outside of this change.
Okay.
But going forward, as they review it this summer, that will not impact next year's bus riders.
Okay. And
So we look at it, so they finish it in July, we're not going to reach out to people and say, oh, you no longer qualify, you don't have a bus in July. That will not be the communication. We'll know about it, we'll make those communications, we'll send out communication early, so families know these are the points, this is what we determined, and where we're at. We're also, the other piece that will occur early in the fall, because you really do need it in the fall, are continuing to review our hazardous routes. So what you want to do is during the school season, because that's when the traffic's the highest, is to ensure that those hazardous routes have been monitored, have been checked. As Dr. Attaway alluded to, I think it was at the business services meeting 2 weeks ago, or something along those lines.
Okay, and so every school will undergo this, I would imagine, with the exception of early childhood
Correct.
and Compass?
Correct.
Okay,
Because everybody else has transportation to it.
yeah. Okay.
I have just one quick question. When you're evaluating, you just said you're going to evaluate the situation. Are you considering changing the bus drop-off points at the schools, or?
No, whatever
Okay.
their current, that's a great question.
Because at Norton
change
Creek,
everything.
it's far, it's
Yeah.
the second lot. So you're not considering changing where the bus drops off?
No.
You're just kind of reevaluating what those distances are?
Correct.
Thank you.
Because the entrance point could have made us a difference by how we were originally calculating it for our families.
Last quick question here for me. Do we, with the new process, and I know it's ongoing, do we anticipate an increase in the amount of students that we will be transporting, or a decrease with this new process?
I believe there'd be an increase. I really do. And I don't think it's going to be significant either. But I would anticipate an increase, a slight increase of ridership.
But just to clarify, that information people shouldn't be counting one way or another. You have to look at all of it first to Okay, good. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure I heard that correctly.
Yes.
It's not that we're saying, hey, everybody, we're going to be increasing all the routes. I really appreciate you taking
Yeah.
this time frame to review it, and then parents and families will have a full year for adjustment and conversation. I really appreciate that. And also that you're streamlining it and bringing it all into the exact same process for each and every individual school. It makes it so much clearer for a parent that had to advocate for a stop when my kids were little. I super duper appreciate the communication and the transparency which you're handling this. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, moving on to citizen comments. We do have citizen comments.
Is that mine to read?
That's you.
During the public comment period, members of the public body who wish to speak are asked to first state their name and community in which they reside. Each individual will have up to 3 minutes to address the board on a topic of their choosing. We ask all individuals who address the board to do so with respect and civility towards others. Please note that personnel matters are sensitive and confidential. We also want to inform our speakers that all regular, special, and committee meetings are live streamed and available for viewing at any time on the district's YouTube channel. Personal information should be considered before making a statement that will be recorded and made public. While the board will not respond to today's public comment during this meeting, we are committed to listening to you to help support our work for the district and on behalf of our students, staff, families, and community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McCabe. I would like to ask our first citizen to come forward, and that would be Mrs. Alice Fremlin.
Hi, my name is Alice Fremling, and I live in South Elgin. I used to teach English at North, and one day a student was presenting in front of the class. He advanced his slide, and suddenly plastered on the screen was a giant racist caricature, totally not relevant to his topic. He laughed, the class had a mixed reaction, and I panicked. Luckily, the bell was about to ring. I turned the projector off and talked with the student after class. Now, for some context, this was my 12th year at North. I wasn't new. I had taken the optional course on culturally responsive teaching, but even with all that background, I was overwhelmed in that moment about what to do. How do I check on the students of color in my room? How do I address the class? How do I make this a teachable moment for the student? Do I report it? What would admins say about how I handled it? I'm still not sure if what I did was best. I bring this story up now because we still have this problem in D303, specifically with staff not having clear training and expectations on how to handle those sensitive situations. In a perfect world, students would never say or do anything racist, sexist, or homophobic. But the reality is that we have high schoolers sharing offensive words and images very publicly without understanding why the joke isn't funny. We have students at elementary, middle, and high school using racial slurs without understanding the weight and violence they carry. We have students using gestures and images that could get them fired in a workplace, but we're sending them out into the world without understanding why they would receive that kind of consequence. My primary concern is the students who are left feeling further marginalized by these incidents, but we also fail every student in our district by not providing a transparent structure for learning from these choices. Ideally, the district would make culturally responsive teaching a foundational block of all its curricula, but at the very least, the district needs to ensure teachers and administrators are prepared on how to handle an in-the-moment situation in a way that leads to learning, how to support students who may have been targets, and how to report and track these incidents. I have 2 white sons in this district, and while we work at home on teaching these lessons as they come up, I want my kids in schools that reinforce that learning when they mess up. I want them to understand that they don't live on an island and that their words and actions carry weight and impact those around them. And I want them to graduate with a respect for and openness to every individual's complexity. Those are 21st century skills that I don't think our district is doing enough to teach, measure, and assess. As the new board establishes its goals, please know that many of your teachers want and need clearer expectations for handling incidents tinged with racism, homophobia, sexism, and other beliefs that negatively impact dignity, belonging, and ultimately academic performance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would ask Ms. Mary Meyer forward.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Mary Mayer. I've lived in the St. Charles School District for 40 years. We live in Elburn, but we are in St. Charles School District. We're kind of in that never land, which used to be. One of the reasons we chose to be in the St. Charles area was because it was known as one of the premier school districts in the state, or in the area. When we moved here, the proficiency rate for this district was 85% or more. As I remember it, it was very high. According to the website, in 2018, proficiency was at 72% for reading, 65% for math. Now, the proficiency level averages around 50%, some higher, some lower. The per-student investment has gone up significantly. 2010, we paid $11,800 per student. 2024, we invested, this is our investment, $18,100 per student, even though the number of students has dropped. I haven't heard any outcry about improving our scores. I don't know why. Here I am. I'm here to suggest that the money that was allocated for DEI, which brought us division, enmity, and insufficiency, be now used to train and encourage our teachers in their specific field of education for our children. For example, reading, they need to be for skills in understanding and knowledge. For mathematics, skills of thinking, which can be instrumental in life's experience. Science, for knowledge, understanding, and innovation. Teachers should be focused on encouraging and empowering their students in ways that lead to each child seeking, developing, and achieving their unique individual talents. I know you are aiming for that, but it doesn't seem to be bubbling up now that we do not have, hopefully, the teachers will be able to concentrate on their subjects. There should be an environment that seeks to value each individual and assist them in achieving their ultimate success, rather than learning, confusion, disdain, and diminishment of others, as was the direction I saw DEA going. Teachers should be inspired and not dividing and discouraged. What I'm trying to say is our teaching classes need to be geared for the teachers to help them, to inform them, and to, I guess, speak in terms, okay, teaching should be inspiring, not dividing, and our students need to be empowered to be confident and competent. That's what we're looking for.
Thank you. Thank you again to each of you for spending your time giving those comments this evening. Next, we will move to our consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 6A through 6V?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. McCabe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kuchert. Sure, you weren't able to see the sign-up? Okay.
I would just finish the motion you have on the
first?
table and then
Yes.
do that, just so you.
Is there a second, Mr. Kuchert? Is there any discussion at this time?
I would like to move to remove item R from the consent agenda.
Okay. And by remove, you mean placing it in the for action?
I do.
Okay. Can I have a motion to move? Yes, so you're the first, and then the motion would be the second? Yes? Right. Yes.
Second.
Thank you. Can you take the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mrs. Hancock?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Kuschert?
To clarify, this is to approve the remaining portion of the consent agenda?
No, this is to approve the action that we just took
Thank
to
you.
place item R, which is the
Yes.
Qualtrics contract to action.
Yes.
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Is there any other discussion related to the consent agenda? Okay, Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Do we need a motion and a second for the consent?
We already
We
did
already
that
did
one,
that.
Okay.
so we're good to go there.
Mr. Kuschert?
Yes.
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. Rich? Mrs. Rich, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. And now we will go slightly out of order, and if you'd like to make your comments, please.
I apologize. My name is Terry McCann Mahalski, and I am a resident of St. Charles with 2 students in the district. I had meant to sign up, but unfortunately, Mr. Vaughn grabbed the sign-up sheet before I could grab it. The reason I am here is because one of the policies of the district is Section 2230, Public Participation at School Board Meetings and Petitions to the Board, which states at the end, petitions or written correspondence to the board shall be presented to the board at the next regular board packet, or in the next regular board packet. On March 10th, myself and a number of other parents sent a letter to the board with concerns regarding our students who happen to have either IEPs or 504 plans, and these concerns have not yet been addressed. We have asked multiple times, and now this is our 3rd board meeting where we are asking for this to be addressed. We are hoping that this will now be put on the board agenda for the next board meeting and that these concerns will be addressed. So please, towards the end of the meeting, make this a motion to address this at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that comment. It will be addressed as appropriately for a future board meeting. Next, for action, item A is the CUSD 303 2024-2025 amended budget. Can I have a motion to approve the CUSD 303 2024-2025 amended budget?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. McCabe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lackner. Any discussion at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item B, in for action, Student Information System Recommendation. Can I have a motion to approve Synergy by EduPoint as the new student information system?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. McCabe.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kuschert, for the second. Is there any discussion at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert?
Yes.
Mr. Lackner?
Abstain?
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes. Motion passes with 6 yes and 1 abstain. Moving to item C, capital projects transfer. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the transfer of funds from the Operations and Maintenance Fund to the Capital Projects Fund?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lackner. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Kuchar. Any discussion or questions at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Kuchar?
Yes.
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Item D is District 303 2025-2026 Student Handbook Discipline Procedures. Can I have a motion to approve the 2025-2026 District 303 Student Handbooks?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. McCabe. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Lackner. Is there any discussion or questions at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Kuchar?
Yes.
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Next, item E is school meal pricing for school year 2025 to 2026. Can I have a motion to approve the school meal pricing for the 2025-2026 school year?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lackner. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Bell. Any discussion or questions at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Kuchar?
Yes.
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item F is the annual fire inspection, service, and testing bid recommendation. Can I have a motion to approve the 2026 to 2029 annual fire inspection, service, and testing contract?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lackner. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kuchar. Any discussion or questions at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mr. Kuchar?
Yes.
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Next is item G, North High School Cafeteria Furniture Replacement. Can I have a motion to approve the contract with Educational Environments for the North High School Cafeteria Furniture Replacement? Thank you, Mrs. McCabe. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Lackner. Any discussion or questions at this time?
I just had a quick question regarding kind of the life of these pieces of equipment. I mean, they are pretty pricey, so I'd imagine that we're hoping that they will last quite a bit of time. So I was just curious if you might have a little
Generally,
context
it's
on
that 20 to 25 years is what we're hoping to get out of that furniture because of the quality of the furniture.
Do we know when the last time that furniture was replaced? Sorry if I missed
I
that.
believe that is original to North.
Yeah, so that would be 22, 20, is it 20, 25 now? Okay,
Yep.
Okey dokey.
25 years, yes. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Kuchar?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. For item H, Norton Creek Interior Classroom Improvement, can I have a motion to approve the contract with Dreesen Construction Company for the Norton Creek Interior Classroom Improvement?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. McCabe and Mr. Lackner. Is there any discussion or questions at this time? Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert?
Yes.
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairread?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item I is our CLEAR residency contract. Can I have a motion to approve a contract for the use of CLEAR to provide residency verification services for CUSD 303?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. McCabe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Bell. Any discussion or questions at this time?
I had a couple quick questions. So I noticed in the write-up for this, and I apologize, I wasn't at the meeting when we had more robust discussion about this, that some of our comparable districts are utilizing this same resource. I was curious if we were able to garner any information from how much, maybe call it taxpayer savings, we found from students that may have been inappropriately enrolled in the district. I see the dollar amount that we're spending each year, just over the cost of one pupil, approximately, give or take. Do we have any background, any information about how many students that may not have been appropriately enrolled in those districts and what kind of savings that provided for the district?
What they were seeing, again, they work with, I think the number was 181 school districts in Illinois. So what they were seeing was somewhere in that 1 to 3% on that initial take. So when you think about that, those are some potentially significant dollars that are taxpayer dollars that are being expensed on students who do not live within those boundaries. Does that answer it?
That was actually my next follow-up question. Is it students that may not be in the appropriate boundaries? Does this resource then take a look at maybe multiple families in a single-family dwelling? Can you expand a little bit about how that research works?
So what it does is we do a registration process. Families bring in all the necessary paperwork. Sometimes the school registrars have some questions about that. Going forward, what they would do is submit that to the district office. The district office would work with CLEAR to see what is the high likelihood that this family lives where they state they live. And they use all accessible data points to verify that for us. And then it turns it over to the district office, and then district office would then work with that family to determine next steps. So it would work from the boundary, the larger D303 boundary, as well as sometimes potentially somebody may not have filled out inter-district transfer. And there's a question there. So it can work inside the district and outside the district.
So that partially answers my third question, so you're right on the ball there. So it is an active process where we will request for them to research a certain enrollment into the district?
Yes, so what it will first do is we run the numbers for the entire district. They run the full batch for us, and what they say is, high percentage all move through. And then they could have some yellows would say, hey, these are some households you may want to think about having further conversation with. Or there's a smaller percentage that is, there's a high likelihood, based off of their data, that these individuals may not live within your boundaries. And then it's on us as the district office, but as was asked last week, that is a district office aspect, and that's not something we would put back down to our schools.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The other thing I would add, there is a clause in the contract, correct? That if for whatever reason we are not happy with the results of the contract after 1 year, we have the opportunity to opt out.
Correct.
Okay.
Is it possible, and I missed the meeting, so I apologize. Is it possible for the board to get a report as to what?
We'll make sure the
we are?
board's aware.
Okay.
Yes.
So as a further follow-up to that, when do you anticipate, I'm just going to call it the first phase, where we run everyone in the district through the system? When do you think that'll be complete and you'll have?
I think we would have that complete by the end of July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It will go pretty quickly. The contract hopefully will be approved tonight. and then our data teams will work with this organization. So I do believe it'll be by that end of July, that August
Okay.
conversation, that we can have that by then.
Perfect. Okay.
And I know by policy and law, there are students who do attend who do not live in the district.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there are some McKinney-Vento families, all of those considerations will be taken into consideration. The tool gives us information, and then the humans make sure we interact with the data, and it's not just, here it is, and then we move from it. There are a lot more conversations that need to occur inside our district, and probably with the schools, just to ensure that the work is the right work.
So is this done then in partnership with any other governmental entities in the event that we were to find students that were not supposed to be enrolled in the district? How is that enforced?
So that is enforced strictly through D3L3 and any other district. That's not a partnering aspect with a police department or anything else. That is solely on the district. For our district, one of the pieces that we'll be looking at is that the safety coordinator would be overseeing this type of work.
Just one quick item to clarify for me and for the public. For students that may possibly have two households due to parental situation, that isn't something that would be at risk in any way. Could you maybe clarify
Yeah,
that? Just so people
absolutely.
aren't
Absolutely,
concerned?
that's a good question. So those are always documented. Most of those situations are a divorce situation where both spouses live within our boundaries. So we would have that documentation, and that would not be in harm's way by any stretch.
Well, and we also have one address that's the primary.
Correct.
Address, so
Correct.
that would be the,
That would be the one that we
That
would
we
say
would check.
is
Yeah.
where their home school is at.
right. Okay. Great discussion. Any other questions? Okay. So with that, Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Rich,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item J is the Edmentum renewal. Can I have a motion to approve the renewal contract with Edmentum?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Kuschert. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hancock. Any discussion or questions at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Abstain.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mrs. Rich,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes with 6 yes and 1 abstain. Item K is grades 6 through 12 health resource recommendations. Can I have a motion to approve the grades 6 through 12 health resources?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hancock. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. McCabe. Any discussion or questions at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, please take the roll call vote.
Mrs. Hancock,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Abstain.
Mr. Lackner,
No?
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mrs. Rich,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes with 5 yes, 1 abstain, and 1 no. Now, we will move to the item that was placed in for action during this board meeting, and that is the Qualtrics contract. Can I have a motion to approve the Qualtrics contract?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. McCabe, and may I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Rich. And then what discussion or questions do we have at this time?
He just wants to vote no.
Okay. Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Abstain.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mrs. Rich,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes with 6 yes and 1 abstain. Next, we will move to Section 8 for information on the agenda. There are 5 items for information. The first 4 would be our standing items, the D303 financial report, Mid-Valley financial report, our FOIA, or Freedom of Information Act requests, and district enrollment. And then the other item, I would just like to ensure that everyone is aware that we have our board committee assignments finalized for this coming session or year. And the new board committee assignments are Mr. Kuchert and Mrs. Rich will co-chair Business Services Committee. Mrs. Hancock and Mr. Lackner will co-chair Learning and Teaching. Mrs. Bell and Mrs. McCabe will co-chair Policy. And then in addition to that, Mrs. Bell and Mrs. Rich will also serve on our Superintendent Safety Committee. You also, I believe we do have the committee schedule. Committee meeting schedules are up on the website as well for anyone's reference. New business. Do any board members have any new business at this time? Okay. And do we have any citizen comments? No, we do not. Can I have a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body, or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kuchert and Mr. Lackner. Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Mr. Lackner?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mrs. Rich?
Yes.
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Kuchert?
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. We are at 6:57 PM entering into closed.